DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the best of the best, the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is nowhere to be found. And on top of all this, give you a little bit more. You need some personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves you to actually put all this stuff into action, to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together now. What you get is the mindset, the method, the podcast, the philosophy, the book. If you don't have the book, go get it. It's called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to ignore the talk and do what you do when it matters most. So this episode is for my performers, salespeople, athletes, speakers, teachers, dancers, horseback riders. People who need a clear, focused mind that is uncluttered by the BS, which could be anything outside of what you need to be focused on when it's time for you to do what you do. Now, I've had over the years, especially in a sport like basketball, many athletes ask me about their challenges with performance anxiety. That when it's time to practice, everything looks great, feels great, you know exactly what you need to do. You've been working on your game, you have the skills in place, you believe you have the ability, you want to perform, you want to get out there and perform, but then when it comes time to perform, things feel so different. You had this audience of people watching you, where there was no audience while you were practicing. You have all this pressure on you because you know if you mess up here, as opposed to in practice, you don't get a second chance to do the whole thing all over again. Your palms are sweaty, you're nervous, you're thinking about what everybody else is thinking about you. It feels like you're in a completely different environment than you were in your training environment, and now your mind is starting to kind of work against you. It's not even that it's telling you negative things, but it has you thinking all these things. You're thinking about so many different things, you're noticing everything, you're becoming self-conscious, and now you're just frazzled. Now you're completely out of it. Now all those skills that you worked on in practice, not only those skills went away, but it's like you lost the keys to unlock the doors to those skills. This is the analogy that I use when I explain people confidence. Confidence, or let's say skill rather, are doors that you have in a house. So you got 8 skills, you got an 8-bedroom house, but each one of those bedrooms has a door with a lock on it. The more confident you are, the more keys you have to unlock those doors. If you're 50% confident, you got keys to 4 to 8 doors. So half of your skills you'll have, half of them you won't. Why? Because you only got half your confidence. But when you're fully confident, 100%, not only do you have a master key that opens the doors, every one of those doors in your house, that master key will open the doors to houses that you didn't even know you owned. Meaning you'll do things that you didn't even know you could do just because your confidence level is so high. If any of you have ever experienced that, I think all of us have at one point or another. You know exactly what I mean. That's a great analogy right there. I'm glad that I made that up. But today's topic is how to ignore the talk. And the talk can be the talk in your head. It can be the talk from the spectators. And in basketball, this is especially a challenge because the fans are right there on top of you, as opposed to track and field or football or golf or tennis, sports you're not even allowed to talk. Figure skating, where the fans can't say anything. And basketball, the fans can say whatever they want for the most part. They're right on top of you. You can literally reach out and touch a fan, and they can reach out and touch you. You can hear everything they say. You don't have a helmet on your head. Your body is, you have on a tank top and shorts, so you're out there. You're naked in front of this audience, metaphorically speaking. They can see your expressions. They can see your face. They can read all your energies. And you can't act like you don't hear anything that they're saying. So how do you ignore that talk and do what you need to do when things matter most? Point number 1. Sometimes people ask me, Dre, when I get into a performance, what should I be thinking before the game? What should I think before I go out and give my speech? What should I think before my job interview? What should I think before a performance? Here's my answer. Nothing. You shouldn't be thinking anything. Your mind needs to be completely clear when it's time for you to perform. Just blank out and do what it is that you do. Now, why would I suggest you think about nothing? It's because since you already work on your game, that means you have the skills and habits down cold already. Now, if you haven't been working on your game, when it's time to perform, what should you be thinking about? You should be thinking about where's the nearest exit so I can get the hell out of here without embarrassing myself. But if you work on your game, if you have the skills in place, if you've been doing what you're supposed to be doing, listen, the skills are there, the habits are there. You already know what you need to do. Your muscle memory knows what it needs to do. Your subconscious mind knows what it needs to do. And since you practice your mental game already, right? Because in episode number 503, I talked about this. And in episode number 247, I told you to stop overthinking. If you haven't heard those episodes, go listen to them. Archive is at dreallday.com/podcast. Thinking is the last thing you want to be doing, especially about anything that is coming from the outside. You don't need to think about what your coach said, what your teammates said, what the opponent said, what the fans or the referee. You don't need to think about anything when it's time to perform, because again, you already know what you need to do. You know what the game is, you know what the game plan is, you know how to perform the actions that are part of that performance. Whatever your performance is, you know what the actions are. You know how everything works, you know where everything goes, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. You don't want to go into a performance thinking about anything, because thinking gets in the way. Understand that instinct, when we act off instinct, that happens much more quickly than when we act off conscious thought. Now, conscious thought is very fast, but instinct is faster. Because conscious thought, we have to see something through our eyes, or we feel it, we take it in through our senses. What do we got? See, sight, smell, touch, taste, and there's one more, hearing. Okay, so we take things in through one of those 5 senses. Then that message has to travel through our brain, to our brains. Then our brain has to interpret what happened, what it is. Then our brain has to send a signal to whatever part of our physical being of what to do next. Whether that's something to say, something to physically do, something to, I don't know, what are other options that we got. But you see those steps, we take it in, step 1, travel to the brain, step 2, brain interprets step 3, brain sends a signal, step 4, we do what the brain told us, step 5. Instinct cuts all those steps down to nothing. Something happens and you immediately respond to it. All those 5 steps get reduced down to 1 step. Something happens, you immediately respond. Now, why am I telling you that instinct is, I'm basically selling you on the idea that instinct's more important than conscious thought when it's time to perform. Simple reason is, as we already talked about, you already worked on your game. See, if you're a basketball player and you practice catching the ball in a certain spot, rising up and shooting that 3-point shot, you don't need to think about that. You don't need to think about, should I shoot this? Am I open? What play are we running? You don't need to think about that, because you already practiced all those things. So when you get in the game, all you need to do is play off instinct. Catch the ball, if you're open, you shoot it. You're not open, you pass it. You want to create more space, you dribble it. You don't got to think about what to do. So when it's time to perform, there's nothing to think about. And you need help getting your mental game right, refer to those episodes that I referred you to a few minutes ago. Hit the rewind button. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to ignore the talk. And that talk can be within your own head or from the outside, or anything that is other than what you want to be focused on. It doesn't have to be specifically speaking, but the talk or anything, quote unquote talk, when it's time to perform. When it comes to opinions, predictions, hecklers in the stands, hecklers online, I want you to remember something, especially for my athletes I'm speaking to specifically here. I mean, I made this episode with athletes in mind. If you're in a sport where hecklers exist, football is one, baseball maybe, basketball absolutely, definitely, where there are hecklers, remember something. If the outcomes were decided just by people talking, there'd be no reason to play the games. So if you got a heckler who's telling you that your team's gonna lose, or this player's gonna shut you down, or somebody's gonna score 40 points on you, I want you to remember something. If the outcomes were only decided by what people said, I don't care if all the people said it, one person said it, everybody on the other team said it, everybody in the stands is saying it. If the outcomes were decided by what people said, they wouldn't be there at the game, because the game would already be decided. When the game is over, you know what the talkers do, whether they're right or wrong? You know what talkers do when the game's over? Y'all watch ESPN. Y'all follow these talking heads TV shows where every day they get on there and they debate with each other over what happened the previous day. And if nothing happened the previous day, they just make up something to debate. They argue about that and then they go home for the day. That's their job, is to sit there and talk about what happened. I want you to understand what the talkers do after the game is over. Do any of you know what the talkers do when the game's over? Some of you think, oh, they get quiet. No, they don't. When the game is over, they start writing notes for what they're going to talk about the next day. See, they go right back to talking, whether you win or lose or draw or the game doesn't even happen. The talkers go right back to talking no matter what. And the next time you play, you know what the talker's going to be doing? They're going to be talking again. And the time after that, they're going to be talking again. Now, sometimes they're on your side and sometimes they're expecting you to fail. But I want you to understand something. Neither one matters. Whether it's a room full of people who all think you're the greatest and that you're going to succeed and dominate, or is a city full of people who think you're the worst and that you're terrible and that you don't even deserve to be on the court or on the field, doesn't matter, because none of them is playing in the game. That's why they're talking. Talk. from the crowd, whoever in the crowd, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your mom, your brother, your sister. If they're not playing in the game, talk is the exact opposite of performing, people. See, when you're talking, it's probably because you're not playing. And when you're playing, you don't need to talk because you're playing. You're already doing your thing. You can let your performance do the talking for you. Now, if you want to combine a little bit of trash talk with your performance, that's fine, to each his own if that's what works for you. But understand, you don't need to say anything when you're performing. You damn sure don't need to say anything to the people in the stands. Listen, they are in the stands, you're in the game. You already won. So you don't have anything to prove to them. No matter what you do in the game, you're in the game. They're not. So remember that the outcomes were decided by the people who are watching the games. We wouldn't need the games. I mean, turn on ESPN right now. I guarantee you, it's people sitting there talking. Right now. Turn on what's the other channel? FS1. Turn on your favorite Instagram, YouTube. Is people doing what? Sitting around talking about what somebody else did. Whether you played or not, they're gonna be talking about it. So what they say doesn't really matter because they still got to go back and talk about tomorrow and the day after that, and they already did 3 days before this, and they're going to keep doing it 100 days from now. Neither one matters what they're saying because what they say isn't determined by whether you win or lose. They got to talk no matter what happens. That's their job. That's what they paid them for, to talk. You get paid to perform. So you do your job so they can do theirs. Okay? You be happy about them because the more they talk about you, the more they're bringing attention to your performance. And you get paid to perform, they get paid to talk about it. So everybody got to do their job. Everybody got to do what they got to do to live, okay? Point number 3. Speaking of that outside chatter, today's topic is how to ignore the talk and do your thing when it's time for you to perform. Remember that the spectators, whoever they are, family members, haters from the other side of town, people in class who you never talk to, but they always seem to be at the games. Some fans who you don't even know who they are, but they talking shit to you as soon as you and your team walk in the gym. Remember that the spectators come to the show to watch you. All the performers who are listening to this, if you've ever done a performance where you felt like there were some people who were antagonistic towards you in the crowd, well, they were antagonistic in a proactive type of way, meaning they were letting you know in a verbal way that they weren't feeling you, or they were laughing, or they were saying stuff, or I don't know, they're throwing tomatoes on the stage. I don't know if people even do that anymore. Probably not in this climate, you can't do that. Or they were, like I said, I talked about in yesterday's episode, when I'm giving a speech and I look around the room, I pay the most attention to the people who are nodding their heads when I make a point, laughing when I make a joke. I can tell that they're engaged in what I'm saying. When I move around the room, their eyes are following me, their heads are turning. But if I see somebody who's not really paying attention, they seem bored, they're not laughing at any of my jokes, I make a point and they're just staring at me like that was supposed to be a point, I don't pay them any mind. So that could be antagonistic as well, but I want you to understand, they're there to watch you. All right, so when I'm in the room giving that speech and there's somebody not laughing at one of my jokes, listen, you still in the room listening to my speech. I'm not in the room listening to yours. When you're in the game playing and there's somebody in the stands talking shit because you shot an air ball to start the game, listen, they're in the stands watching the game. You're on the court playing in the game. If it wasn't for you, they wouldn't be there because they wouldn't have nothing to pay attention to. Okay, if they weren't there, you would still be playing. But if you and the rest of the players weren't there, they wouldn't be watching because there's nothing to pay attention to. You understand? So you don't need to prove anything to the people in the crowd because you already did by being on the court while they're in the crowd. See, look around and notice next time you go to any venue in which people perform, whether you're performing, whether you're going as a fan and watch somebody else performing, notice something. That the seats in that venue, I don't care if that venue is a classroom, a lecture hall, a basketball gym, an opera stage, a performance, what do they call those? A performance auditorium, performance hall, any type of venue where people perform, all the seats, and if I'm wrong about this, somebody let me know, any venue you go to, all the seats are arranged in such a way that every spectator's attention is directed towards the stage or the court or the platform. Going anywhere where people perform, I guarantee you is like this. You go in a classroom, all the seats and the desks are arranged in such a way that when you sit down in that seat, you are facing the stage where the teacher teaches from. You go to a gym and you sit in any seat in that gym, your seat is directed towards the court so you can see the plays, the game that's actually happening on the court. You go to a stadium, every single seat in that stadium, every single one is situated in such a way that when you sit down, you are looking directly at the field. You go in a lecture hall in any college campus, sit in any seat in that lecture hall, and you're going to be looking directly towards the stage from which the teacher does their teaching. Isn't that something? Any venue you go to, all the seats are arranged that way. I don't think there's any governing body that forced everyone to do this. It's just the way that it is. Now, why am I telling you this? Because those people who are sitting in those seats, they're only there for one reason. So they can watch the person who's on the stage. There's no other reason to be there. That's why all the seats are directed towards the stage. That's the person who everybody came to watch. That's the show that's happening on the stage, not in the crowd. So for the performer, athletes, speakers, teachers, whoever, keep them, those spectators, those people watching through there are camera people there. There's probably a cameraman everywhere nowadays. So when you look at that camera and you think there are hundreds of thousands of people behind that lens watching you, understand that you need to keep them mentally in their proper space, which is what? There to watch you. Point number 4. Today's topic is how to ignore the outside talk, quote unquote, and do your thing when it matters most. Understand that every point that I've given you here in today's episode, these are things that you need to be doing in practice. This is not an episode you should be listening to right before the game and saying, all right, now I'm gonna do all these things that Dre said. Now, if you happen to have a game today and you're listening to this, okay, nothing else we can do about that. But after this game, I want you to understand, these things that I'm talking about, you need to be doing these every day in practice so that when you get to the game, you're doing this automatically. You don't even need to listen to this no more because you're already doing it. You made it part of who you are that you don't need to hear me saying it to you anymore. So when you get in the game, whatever your game happens to be, it's easy to shut out all that other stuff and only see the target, which is the performance that's in front of you. This, ladies and gentlemen, what you're listening to here today, this is the mental game practice. Notice that nothing that I talked about here today has anything to do with how you practice. I didn't say anything about how many jump shots you need to shoot, or how you're gonna get down the talking points in your speech, or how you should, I play basketball and I've given speeches. The only kind of performance I've ever done. But I know I have a lot of performers who listen to this who do other things than that. I can't even give an example of what you do because I have no idea what you do. But those things in detail, I'm not talking about those. I'm not here to talk about those. I don't need to talk about those. This is the mental game side of it, because these apply to anything that you do. If you're not doing these mental game things, it doesn't matter how much you practice the physical game, because your mind will destroy all of that. Any of you ever been that person or known a person who had all the physical tools and resources in place, but their mind wasn't in the right place, and therefore they didn't perform? They couldn't perform at all. You're like, what the hell is wrong with this person? I know they had the physical tools. I saw them do it. But when your mind's not in the right space, listen, it's like that key. I just told you got an 8-bedroom house. There's a skill in each one of those bedrooms, but every door is locked. If your mind's not in the right space, you can't unlock any of those doors. So what you get is a lack of performance, and you get frustration. See, if you just can't perform and you got a house with no rooms, or you have no skills, you can be confident as hell and do nothing. Or you just a bum. But see, when you got a whole bunch of skill, but you can't unlock any of those doors, that's when you get frustration. Frustration is, I know I can, but it's just not happening. And that comes from lack of mastery of your mental game. Not lack of mastery of your physical game, your mental game. So that's why you got to follow these points I gave you today. Let's recap them. How to ignore the talk or anything from the outside and do your thing when it matters most. This is for all performers, athletes, salespeople, speakers, teachers, dancers, equestrian riders who need a clear, focused, uncluttered mind when it's time for you to do what you do, which is everybody. Point number 1. What should you be thinking about at the time of performance? You should be thinking about nothing at all, because you already worked on your game. You already have the skills. You already have the habits down cold. And since you practice your mental game, like we talked about in episode 503 and episode 247 on stopping overthinking, the last thing you want to be doing before performance is thinking about anything outside of just being focused on your job. And you already know your job, so you don't have to think about that either. Point number 2, when it comes to outside opinions, predictions, hecklers, and the crowd, whoever's in the crowd, remember something. If the outcomes were decided by the people who talk, there'd be no reason to play the games. Because listen, talking is much easier than performing. When the game is over, the talkers go right back to talking. That's what they do for a living. They talk. But understand, they need people like you to perform so they got something to talk about. So everybody's doing their job. All right, you're helping them. They're kind of helping you in some way. Point number 3, Remember that the spectators come to the show to watch you, literally. Go in any venue. Next venue you walk into, look at the seats. All the seats are arranged for the spectators to look at the performance. The performance stage is set in such a way that everybody in the venue is seated to watch you. Okay, so you need to keep the spectators mentally in their proper space, which is the people who are there to watch you. They're supporting your presence on the stage. Whether they're cheering for you or cheering against you, they're there to watch you. You're not there to watch them. Point number 4, every point that I've given you here today, these are all things you need to be doing in your practice. The practice of your speeches, the practice of your ballet recital, the practice of your riding competition, the practice of your football or basketball or baseball game. These are all mental game practices that you need to be doing every single time you're doing your physical practice, so that when you get in the game, it's easy to shut out all the other stuff and only see the target, which is the performance that's in front of you. And what's going on in the game group? Of course, we talk about performance here. It's 3 things that the game group is about. If you only remember 3, it is discipline, strategy, and results. Results is that performance. You perform to produce results, but there needs to be a strategy in place for how you prepare for that performance. What performance you're actually trying to get yourself into. There's a lot of things we could do, but not a lot of things we should do. And having the discipline to do that preparation work, to put that strategy into work, do the preparation work, then perform, then get the results, and then, well, you got to repeat the results. I mean, who wants to produce results just one time? That probably won't lead to a sustainable career. So in the game group, we focus on personal development, we focus on business, and of course with the athletes, we got plenty of material for you as well. So in any area that you happen to be in, we have it covered there, because everybody here is in business. Everybody here wants to develop as a person. That you may or may not be an athlete, but in the game group, the discipline that you need to have a strategy for your business, have a strategy for your life, have the development materials in place. Anything that you heard on this podcast, you want to hear me go into a deeper dive where I give you an actual roadmap to achieve these things, not just the what, but also the how. And you have me, of course, there as your virtual personal coach to help you make sure that you're on the right path to actually get into those results, enacting the strategies in the proper way with the proper discipline. And this is really the key thing. Is why I keep using this word every day, even on the show. That's what the game group is for. There's a forum there. There's plenty of material in the game group. I want you to go to dreallday.com/game group. You can read about it. I can't tell you everything that's in it in this little soundbite here. Of course, I could take longer, but that'd be a whole episode. But anyway, dreallday.com/game group to learn about the game group. That's where we go deeper into every topic that you hear me talk about here. And the game group's only going to get better and more robust over time, which means I'm gonna keep it real with you. The price is gonna go up. So the price you see today is not gonna be that price a year from now, I promise you. So I would suggest you get in while you can fit in. And that again is at dreallday.com/game group. Work on your game. Dre all